This is Test Case Scenario with me, your host, Jason Baum. This podcast is the definitive hub for knowledge and stories in the software testing and development communities. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and let's dive straight into the episode. This is the first ever live episode of Test Case Scenario. So I'm going to intro it like I normally intro, but I just wanted to say that because it's so exciting that we are live with you. Thanks for tuning in wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to another episode of Test Case Scenario. I am your host, Jason Baum. With me on the panel is Evelyn, Coleman, Nikolay, Advolodkinn, Merrell, and joining us today, a very special guest, Maaret Pyhäjärvi. Maaret, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
All right. I normally will give a quick intro of our guest, and then we have a lot to talk about. We're going to be diving into all sorts of things like, well, you know what? Let me give a quick intro, and then I'll tell you some things that we're going to be talking about. So Maaret is a trailblazer in the world of software testing. She brings a wealth of experience to our discussion today. She has over 22 years in the public speaking sphere, an impressive record of over 50 keynotes, 529 sessions across 28 countries. Maaret, we heard that you recently retired from giving talks, so congratulations there. And just a huge impact on the testing industry. She's a key member of the project leadership committee for the Selenium project. She describes herself as a change agent, tester of products and organizations, exploratory tester, programmer, speaker, author, mentor, and conference designer. Perhaps we get into most of that in the next however long we're going to be on. This is live. We could take it however long we want. Let's just hold people captive for 3 hours. What do you think? We'll go Joe Rogan style.
Some of us have responsibilities, but let's try.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I do too. All right. Well, Maaret, we're super excited to have you on the episode. All right. So I promised what was that?
And
Go
Jason,
ahead.
before we jump in, since this is a live episode, everyone is welcome to jump in and have a conversation with us. Ask any questions you want. Drop them in the chat wherever you're tuning in from, whether LinkedIn or Twitter. We'll get your questions here, your comments here, and we'll answer them as the episode goes.
Thank you, Nikolay. Yes, definitely ask us questions. It's exciting. Normally, I would tell you to email us. I'm going to drop that email just in case you do, and you're watching a recorded version of us, because we are going to record this episode. Our email is community-hub@saucelabs.com. But since you're watching live, you could just ask us questions in real time. Today, we're going to be celebrating the fact that it is the holiday season. As you could tell by everybody's getup, I am wearing my Bob Ross, official Bob Ross from the Bob Ross Company holiday sweater that says "Happy Little Holidays." That's very nice. And I can see everybody else brought their holiday attire. Thank you for joining the festivities. And we're going to talk a bit about exploratory testing. Since I know, Maaret, that's something that you love to cover. We'll talk about the Selenium project maybe a little bit what it means to be a change agent, because I'm really curious to know a bit more about that piece of you. And then, we'll just celebrate the fact that it is the holiday season, the new year, and have a little bit of fun. How about that? Sound good, everybody? Awesome.
Absolutely.
So let's just dive in. And typically we like to lob a softball, as the first question, because we need to set the stage somewhere. So, Maaret, can you tell us a bit about exploratory testing? Like, what is exploratory testing, and I guess in your definition?
I kind of look for this idea of agency. Like, people, when you do work, you need to have all the pieces of the work, in order to do a good job. So not separating, test case design and the execution to two different people, but actually putting them on the same person and requiring you to intertwine them with learning in a smart way. So kind of like that self-control and making those choices that no one else is telling you. How do you get to the results? Well, I talk about results gap a lot, kind of like the idea that sometimes there's this gap that you don't know what you don't know. Like you have this empty white paper of things that you didn't yet know that you need to fill in. And no one can tell you how to do that. So that's kind of exploratory testing to me.
Awesome.
And where do you send, once you have that filled out, like this metaphorical piece of paper that you've done your exploration, do you keep that and build your tests? Do you send that back to some kind of stakeholder within your company? I'm just curious, who gets those results? Who's the person who needs to know?
So in a usual case, it's not the full list, obviously. Like it's not the whole white paper. It's more like, if I find something worth talking about, I will pair with a developer immediately, probably on the fix. Maybe sometimes, I will even, interrupt doing the testing to do a fix myself. Kind of, we're figuring out the whole, what's the best way for us to work together as a team. Sometimes it actually makes sense to not talk to another person, but just to create a pull request and get the feedback over and done with. But a lot of times it's kind of like I've noticed this over the years that I can interrupt a team of 12 so that nobody else can work with feedback. So creating a list of, let's go through this in the beginning of the day or, in the end of the day or whenever we have time or in some kind of, batches, and maybe already kind of leave some of those conversations completely out. I used to measure myself, for example. I think half of the things that I find are things that I already have found before. I just forgot. And if I don't take a moment to reflect on that, I'm going to waste everyone's time again and again. So kind of like managing that, level of noise versus the value is kind of a big thing.
How much of the time you spend doing exploratory testing is measuring against like requirements, user stories, product management, delivered design requirements versus user perspective, what you believe the user wants from the software? We've had this conversation before around, do people want to use software or do people want to get a job done? How do you approach that process?
I kind of like I intertwine all these perspectives into kind of like sessions of exploring. Sometimes I take a specification and I very kind of like focused way go through that. Sometimes I take the user perspective. Sometimes I take the kind of first experience perspective, because you will see different things when you start a completely new product, completely the first time, something that just happened today when we were doing an ensemble testing with one developer and another tester together at the office. And kind of like, intertwining all those perspectives. So I could probably, if I tried, like I could list probably hundreds of different perspectives that I can intertwine in some way, but percentages, I've never been very good at explaining that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just like looking for a ballpark. Like I can imagine someone saying, I never test according to requirements. I always test from the user perspective. I'm just getting a general idea of the balance you try to go for,
So I do spend time on going through the requirements. Like if someone did take the time and effort to write things down, I will check them. But I almost never start with them. I almost always finish with them. Or I take them somewhere kind of closer to the end rather than in the beginning. So kind of like that's usually stuff that, well, my team's developers also are capable of reading clear specifications if anyone ever manages to write them. So the likelihood of that information being the gap that we would look for is less than the other way around. So kind of like, you go back to that. And then again, of course, you will learn your colleagues. Some of them will never read the 35-page long one feature specification documents. Then it might kind of raise in my priorities. And you can imagine it takes quite a chunk of my time if I have to read 35 pages of a specification, which is, not uncommon for a thing that somebody writes.
Interesting.
I also have a question about exploratory testing, because I feel like from what I've read and seen, even though I've never myself have practiced it exactly outside of just doing spontaneous exploratory testing, is there a proper process to doing exploratory testing? I've seen people talking about time boxing, as you talked about, writing stuff down, not doing it maybe the whole day. I don't know. What do you think? Like, for anyone getting started, what is the right process to follow in order to do exploratory testing?
Kind of like if you would start your day by thinking of what do you think you're going to do today, and then you would maybe write something down for yourself so that you can be honest whether you managed to do something today or what you intended. I think that's kind of all the process you really need on kind of like, looking at your working day and what you think you're doing, and then of course looking at the kind of maybe larger scale of kind of like what's your overall plan and how that evolves, like having some kind of a way of tracking that. But again, like there's so many different ways of doing that, and I'm kind of guessing that actually, anyone who is doing resultful testing and not just implementing somebody else's manual test cases into automation, they're probably doing exploratory testing. They might not just call it that. And again, I'm not that keen on all of these kind of like definitions of like what is this and what is that, and kind of like how do you split these into different categories. But what I do care about is that I think that for contemporary exploratory testing, one essential practice is that you would write down your documentation in automation. I do not write detailed lists of things that I clicked or things that I did. I don't produce anymore. I don't produce videos of me testing. I have done that also over the years. And nowadays, what I try to do is like if I have an insight that I want to keep around, I would write automation. If I can't write it by myself, I will talk to a developer. Maybe I'll pair with a developer on getting some of that done. Because again, we have this gap that we're trying to figure out. What are we missing? What don't we currently have in our automation? And again, any automation is created by the process of exploratory testing, by thinking of what is it that we want to look at. So kind of I don't separate it in a way, and it's more of a mindset of let's try to collaborate and let's try to keep things that belong together and try not to stick to a plan that was done when we knew the least.
Wow, so that's very cool. So when you discover issues or potential bugs, you use automation to document it. And so then you get documentation and then also repeatable tests that you can run afterwards to validate that the behavior was fixed.
Yeah. And a kind of lovely conversation also on why am I finding these? Why isn't the automation that we've already put quite significant effort on, why aren't they finding it already? Like, why are we missing these kind of things? How could we learn to do our automation in a way that would actually do the work that we expect the whole of testing to do, and to make sure that it stays around even when we are not around? This was kind of the big insight for me some years ago, kind of like realizing that, I will leave organizations. I've never stayed in an organization more than 3.5 years. I am, by the way, right now at my current job at 3.5 years. And it doesn't look like I'm leaving. So I'm breaking my personal records right now.
I thought you were making an announcement. I was like, whoa, breaking news.
But yeah, kind of like, the idea that, we are supposed to leave. We are not there forever. We are, doing other jobs, even in the same company, we will shift. And some of the stuff we learned by testing, we should be leaving that behind. And automation is basically the way that we do it.
Is there a common thread that you find? You threw something out that I'm going to go back to because it was really interesting. Like, why didn't the automation catch it? Is there a common thread? Is there like a theme? Like, do you find similar things that come up that caused the fact that automation didn't catch it in the first place?
Usually it goes back to developer intent and the conversations we had through exploratory testing about developer intent that turn into better developer intent, meaning better developers, and thus less problems to find by testing. And again, deeper insights. I don't want to, like, I talk about this idea of pizza boxes. Like, I don't want the tester's job to be pointing out pizza boxes in the middle of the living room floor. Like, that's not a job for a human. That's not a job even for automation. We should be, when we're creating software, we should be tidying up at the same time. So kind of like getting to this place where it's nobody's work to pick up the pizza boxes. It's part of the usual process of how we eat our pizza, that the boxes are taken to trash, and then we can spend our time on something a little bit more valuable.
Yeah, Titus Fortner, who's been on this show many times, likes to say, like, if you're writing the test and it's coming up past every single time and nothing's happening, you're not even looking at, like, is there a point to that automated test? Like, there's some people like to run a lot of tests and they think they've tested, but if the test isn't actually getting what's being missed, then is there a point to that test? Evelyn, I think you said it, right? Like, if a test...
Oh, if a test runs in the woods and no one reads the results, did you even write an automated test?
Yeah, I love that.
I agree. I think that this is such an important take on test automation in general, just testing in general. As a newcomer to the testing space, I hear a lot about pyramids and how to structure different tests. And you get a lot of this very book knowledge. If you're going to write a testing program or testing strategy, you're going to go through these phases and do all this. But what I'm hearing is a call to arms for individuals to think critically about their software, to think critically about the gaps, to try on different hats, so to speak, different personas when they're looking at their software and analyze what their testing strategy should be from different angles, as well as analyzing what kind of gaps there are. Not just gaps because we say, oh, it's a percentage of coverage, but gaps because something is important or something hasn't been looked at or something that was critical was missed in an automated test. I think I much prefer, after hearing for the last 5.5 years, every single test strategy under the sun, I much prefer this think critically, use your brain and put it towards the test. I love that there's some structure out there for people who are getting started, and that cannot be missed. There's some really amazing guidance out there, but at the end of the day, I think we need to call on people's intuition and their experience to look at things critically. Hopefully that wasn't a divisive take on
Not at all.
automation.
Not in this crowd.
Okay. I don't want to make any followers angry.
If you're angry, send angry messages live to no, just kidding.
We will read them.
Yeah, we'll read them out loud. And
Evelyn's were Twitters.
Maybe it's a good moment to take a question or two from our audience.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, I'll drop the first one on here. I'm not sure what it means, but maybe Lewis Carter can evaluate. He says, I have a quick question about the freight market. We're getting less drivers from Nevada. Can you please help me? What is the best way to get the drivers in festive season from PST?
We did say any questions they had. So
I guess that was the any questions. Yeah.
Might be testing us.
Marcus, perhaps you could take this one.
Well, first you got to make sure that they can drive over mountainous terrain. And you got to make sure that when they're doing that, they're wearing battery-powered festive lights. You can't have any other alternative to that. Like I was just sitting there thinking, watching this question going, this feels like a little bit of a troll, someone having fun, but wouldn't it be amazing if we actually broke out like the perfect answer to it? I gave it a 5-second go. I'm sorry. I can't do more than that.
Yeah, even like I got this little dancing hat that, because believe it or not, there's a virtual background. It actually sings Holly Jolly Christmas. I think you should give all the truck drivers one of those hats and make them make stops along the way and give candy canes to children. And that, if that doesn't put you in a festive mood, I don't know, what's wrong with you.
But
Just make sure you put the truck in low gear to go down hills. That's it. That's my main advice.
Good advice.
And the other thing they could do is watch us while we live stream, and they'll see how festive we are, and they might get inspired to be festive with us. just like it all started out with me and Jason, and then everyone wanted to join in and contributed their little hats and their little flowers, and here we are all festive together.
And I will say that if this question is coming from, a very dire need to get drivers during the festive season, especially coming from Nevada, I do hope, Louis, that you are able to have those needs met, and wish you an incredible holiday season. In all seriousness.
Evelyn
I'm kind
took
of
the very
wondering if I
kind.
should relocate to Nevada, because Finland is kind of far away from Nevada. So I'm trying to place it on the American map right now.
Do you
in
drive
my
a
mind.
truck?
Yeah.
Just east.
Well, not yet. Maybe that's a
You're
new
about
career
to
move for
quit your
me.
job,
I
right?
could try
So
that.
It's just east of California.
Okay.
all right, we got one other question. This one
Another.
might be more serious. Lewis again asks, as a software developer, what is the best way to get a job with less stress?
Oof,
Who wants to take that?
that is a
Maaret?
tough question.
I don't know. I kind of think maybe the stress is something that you have a bit of choice over yourself as well, on kind of when you end and what you choose to take as your problems. And well, at least that's what I've been catching over the last 25 something years, on kind of like, you can choose what items you take stress on, and yeah, you can, carry whole the world on your shoulders, or you can find a corner that is nice for this week, and they take a different one next week.
I agree with that. And if you're struggling to do that on your own, there are coaches out there who could help you manage that stress. If managing stress during a job search is something that you feel you have an opportunity for growth in, to get to that level of being able to manage it yourself, there are experts out there who are willing to do coaching. You can always go to one of those job finder groups and get a battle buddy or a mentor to help you with the tougher parts of that hunt. And best of luck to you in your job search.
I think to me, you got to understand what is your version of high stress and low stress, because I've learned in my career that having a job that doesn't demand much of me, where I don't have any visible impact on the company I'm working for, causes me so much more stress than having a job where I'm busy all the time, but I do see that at the end of the day, I'm helping people, and people are getting use out of the software I'm making. The worst job I ever had was me sitting there sort of analyzing code that I needed to test and measuring for coverage and sort of gamifying when I could turn a line of code green versus red. And that was the worst job I ever had. It was stressful to me, even though I had full agency over what I did and I had no high demands, couldn't take the lack of impact. So just got to understand what is your stress and seek the opposite.
Those are all really good answers. I would just say from my own perspective that what has helped me in the past is identifying, like asking myself, why do I feel stressed? And is it from imposter syndrome? Is it from God only know? Who knows? There's a million reasons to be stressed, right? We all have tons of reasons to be stressed. And I think what has helped me personally is meditation. Meditation is so important to my daily life. When I don't meditate, I feel it. It's a good way to kind of tune everything else out, stay in the moment. And I think that at times is the best way to manage stress. And also be kind to yourself, set limits, boundaries, very important. And when you do those things and create this healthy lifestyle, I think you naturally find a way to help balance it. That being said, totally understand that doesn't always work. So I definitely feel for that question. And if you find the perfect answer, tell me.
I also want to just add a little point that I found that has really helped me in terms of a perspective shift, and it touches a little bit on what Maaret had said, was like life is always full of challenges, right? Where no one's life doesn't have challenges. And so we can view a challenge as, oh my God, this is horrible, I'm stressed, I don't want this. or we can view it as an opportunity to grow as a human being and grow our skills and push to the new level of the next person that you can be. And so for me, I found that really helpful, because whenever I encounter whatever little annoyances I might have, I'm like, all right, this is an opportunity for me to grow and expand myself as an individual and make my life even better.
Great answer, Nikolay.
He can say that because where he lives, it's like 75 degrees and sunny, like 300. I'm not just kidding.
I was hearing some really awesome questions. And
Get a little bit of winter and then.
Yeah, no, I have become much weaker since moving to Florida. I went to visit my family in Maryland for Thanksgiving, and I said, my God, you people are so strong over here. How do you wake up in the morning and go outside? I'm going back to my 70-degree weather.
Nikolay, I got the newspaper this morning. It's 33 degrees, and I walked outside, t-shirt, just grabbed the newspaper, came back in, felt very strong.
You are amazing.
Very
person.
strong in questioning why I live where I live.
That is why you're my boss.
Yeah. Nikolay getting a lot of compliments on his glasses.
All right, let's drop more. We're getting a huge queue of questions that started up
It's
here.
Aaron Evans.
I'll drop. Let's continue. We'll continue.
Yeah, let's keep taking questions because
Yeah.
I love the fact we could take questions from the audience. This is fun.
Absolutely. Simranjeet says, in my career, I never actually had a chance where I have to write test cases, but I have written test cases, just practice locally. Where can I start as a mobile developer? I hope my questions make sense.
I'm trying to figure out if those are two. They're like, so I want to become a mobile developer who knows how to write test cases, or I am a mobile developer, but I haven't been able to figure out how to write test cases. We could probably answer any of those combination of questions, but I was first off, I would say that if you're a mobile developer or you're trying to be a mobile developer and you're already thinking about how to incorporate tests into that, good on you. That's fantastic. I would say I would personally choose to write tests that are in the same language or same development tool set that you're using to develop your mobile app. You're doing React Native, write JavaScript tests. If you're writing XCUI, if you're writing an app in Xcode using Objective-C or Swift, stick with that for the test case. If you're writing Android, stick with Java or Kotlin. In that case, I think that those there are purpose-built frameworks for those mobile app development things, and I would just stick with that and build the habit. It's a great habit to be in. It'll give you huge amounts of confidence in your ability to ship software in the future.
That's a good answer, Marcus.
Anyone else want to add anything? Maaret?
I'm kind of wondering on the starting as mobile developer, whether it's about test cases at all, or is it more like kind of what skills you in general need to get started? So again, a lot of times we start practicing by kind of like, taking courses online, and there's a lot of nice courses on test cases and how to write, well, particular styles of test cases in that. But finding that first place that where you could do that maybe with a crowd rather than having to do it all by yourself. Just asking around, maybe that's a good thing to do.
And Maaret, quick question on that. Which courses do you like online to learn the different types of testing?
I don't like courses online. It's because I've been around in so many conferences and so many trainings over the years that I have kind of I have had enough of that already. I feel like that. If I watch videos, I often watch them with 2x speed because I consume just the bits and pieces. I prefer reading over videos a lot. And I like learning from random people from the internet. So kind of like, I decide what I want to learn and I find someone who has been doing some of that. And when my colleagues are too busy for me, it's great that the wide web here has random people that always have time when the sample size is big enough. So I've learned tons, kind of pairing and ensembling with random people of the internet.
Your top 5 resources from your massive wealth of experience.
You're asking really hard questions.
He love
softballs.
He loves the hard ones.
People love resources.
People love resources. So I can, I have to obviously say that I have created a exploratory testing foundations course, which I have available as a text version with this kind of like idea of like the listing of the 32 bugs that you could find if you were testing that little target application that is on that course. And it's available on DevTube. So maybe that's one of my go-to resources. But I kind of like, I think maybe the one thing that I always send people to is Elizabeth Hendrickson's Explore It book or her test heuristics list.
She's brilliant.
Really great materials. Just kind of like, wisdom instilled into a couple of pages where if you learn to use that, I would say maybe unfortunately in some of the testing jobs, you can already do quite well with the 2-pager. And I would like the bar to be a lot higher, obviously, but that's been the experience over the years that the bar can also sometimes be that low.
Maaret, you kind of took the words out of my mouth with your answer at first, your first answer. As far as like the community, that's always going to be my first go-to for anything. I am the same way. I don't really learn well in a classroom style setting. I always learn from the cohort. I always learn from the peers who are taking the class with me much more than I do from the teacher. It has nothing to do with the teacher. It has to do with my own learning style. But I know there's a lot of people like me who have a tough time just like listening to someone speak and then, okay, now I know it. Like I need to hear other people grasp on it, and then I can digest the information. I also learn in this setting from listening to you all talk about testing. I mean, that's how I've learned a lot. I have actually for mobile specifically for the original question. Listen to last week's episode with Hanson Ho from Embrace, who came on. He's an Android architect for Embrace, and he had a whole lot to say about mobile development, but also how much as a mobile developer he loves testing and loves testers, which like I that's awesome to hear, right? You don't really hear that often. And he wasn't talking about unit testing, by the way. So that was really cool. Find the framework you love, join the community, get involved. And I think that's your first step.
All right. Next question. Who are the best stakeholders for doing exploratory testing other than QA SDET?
I want to hear Maaret's answer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Pretty much anyone. I've done demos with product owners, live demos, kind of like, exploring an application that they needed to learn in the moment, kind of like, sometimes kind of framing it as an assignment that we're trying to do and working that way. So product owners, product managers, all of product people, real customers, awesome. Working with them as well. I have had legal people exploratory testing with me. So kind of like, especially when focusing on licensing and open source, sometimes we have a really nice learning session around that. And a lot of times kind of like, if you need to get a group of people with a common idea of are we done or should we be worried? Putting those people, regardless of their roles, together and making them co-decide on how they feel about quality, much better way than trying to look at bug metrics or test case metrics or whatever metrics. A group of people and 2 hours together, magical.
How do you organize that? How do you get an hour or 2 hours of someone's time to help you with exploratory testing?
It's kind of like how do I do it is a different one than how other people do it. So with a few years, nowadays I carry a lot of privilege. I can boss people around. Unfortunately, it's a lot easier for me, and I have learned this, that like the things that I can just ask and people show up might be something that others get an absolute no, will not participate, will not do this. So maybe if it appears like you had a party with the friendly people and everyone saw that the thing was fun with the friendly people, then you will get the reputation that makes it easier to get the other people to join. And if that doesn't work, always kind of managing the organization, kind of, managing upgoing, skip level, looking for their managers' commitment to participating in something, doing a bit of a kind of internal salesy style of things might help with finding the time.
One of the things I used to do whenever I would onboard at a new company as a QA person was I would dedicate myself to finding a bug like on day one, and not only reporting the bug in a very detailed way with steps to resolve, but like find the commit that I think was probably responsible, zero in on like the line of code, and bring that and build credibility. And then they'll start paying attention. They won't groan when you walk down the hall, because you're not coming out of this with aggression. You're coming at this with, I've done my homework. I know this is actually a thing. I think I've identified the root cause. I've done the first hour of your research for you. And here's how we can all sort of be collaborative on this. And I think that's a good way to get people to pay attention when you ask them for favors like or stuff like that.
I remember I joined this one organization a couple of jobs ago, and I had this, like, pretty much that kind of an attitude on, like, on day one, I want to find a bug and I want to be, like, showing my thing. And then I joined at 9 a.m. They put me into a meeting 9:30. And I got out of that meeting like 3 p.m., like, like training all day, like, all of my great plans of how my first day would go is just basically watered down. But what happened in that first half an hour was actually surprising me, because what I did is I in the first half an hour, I managed to ask for access to the system that I was supposed to test. So I logged in. I got the credentials, I logged in, I bookmarked the place, so that I can find it when I come back from the meetings. And 3 o'clock when I came from the meetings, I used the bookmark and I found a big visible crash. And the analysis of that problem turned out that I had managed to not bookmark the first page that I ended up on, but bookmark something in the application that was the only place in the application that would cause that crash. And it created a reputation that lasted entire my time in that company. That
All 3.5 years.
I just find them. And that was, well, I talk about serendipity a lot, kind of like, that was a lucky accident, but I would have known how to go for that kind of things, seeking different technologies and looking at how people implement things and where the risks are. I would have done that later on, but being lucky enough to do that on my day one was kind of a funny
Wow.
experience.
That's great.
I love
That's
your
fun.
suggestion of collaboration, making it collaborative, because in DevOps, right, to talk the blameless culture. And I think that's one way that you do create a blameless culture, is when it's like, it's not your fault. Let's fix what the problem is together, big picture. Like, what's the big picture at the end of the day? I think that's a really good call.
I think there's also an opportunity there to put, send the ladder back down, as we say, once we get to a certain role within a company, to make sure that we're extending our hand to see if other people would like, to join us. And, I've had roles where people come and ask for volunteers to do something else, to spend the day with another part of the organization, especially when things are slower. And it's a really great opportunity for anybody who is looking to get more technical, looking into starting to understand testing. There may be people in your organization from completely different departments that you never would have expected, and just opening that up and saying, hey, we're going to be doing some exploratory testing. It's, as long as you have the credentials to get in, it's something that anybody can do with us. Is there anybody that's interested from your group? And you'd be very surprised who might raise their hand. I ended up getting a job in college that way. It was a construction job. I was doing cleaning. And they said one day, well, we need some people to come over to the construction side. And there were all these big burly workers. And I grabbed a friend and I said, let's volunteer. Next time they ask, let's volunteer. No matter what it is they're going to ask us to do, let's do it. And we got over there and we pulled metal apart for recycling all day. And I ended up getting a job. So I think anyone can be a stakeholder for exploratory testing if they're motivated enough.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. Should we take another question? There's so many questions.
Yeah,
should we take another question? Should we ask a question? Where are we at? I mean, we only have...
We answered the interesting stories because Maaret had that beautiful story about finding that serendipitous
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good
bug.
one.
Well, and so we have some other ones that we can to answer or ask.
We have a
questions.
hello from Aaron
He just
Evans.
wanted to throw that up because he's just so proud of those glasses. Who gave
Hi,
Nikolay the
Aaron.
controls here?
And
Yeah,
I wanted
Aaron-
to say hello to
Aaron-
Aaron, who used
Yeah,
to
he's
be
a
a
friend of
former
ours, so-
solution architect at Sauce Labs.
Oh, very nice, Aaron. Thanks.
Yeah,
for
we all
joining
work
us.
together. Marcus, Aaron, Titus, myself.
Evelyn,
Team. Evelyn was
Yep.
there too. Yeah, that was a cool team.
the
That
little
was when we had a big
solutions
team.
architect.
Good times. But yeah, Aaron's big influencer, big thought leader in the
Yeah.
test space. Go follow him.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Aaron. And
And
I
then
mean,
there's
I will excuse the fact that you like his glasses. Oh, and he
And there's this
really
other
likes your
comment.
glasses.
Another person likes my glasses as
Oh, that's
well,
still
so
Aaron.
I have to throw that up. But it's with an exclamation point
This
versus not.
No, he spelled your name right this time.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that was the air.
Oh, Marcus caught the bug.
That's right.
Cool. I have a question. I'm really curious because I gave the numbers. I'll read them again because they're just so damn impressive. 22 years in public speaking, 50. I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. 22 years in public speaking, 50 keynotes, 529 sessions across 28 countries. Wow. First, like, how do you do that? No, I'm just kidding.
One by one.
Tell us
yeah,
the
yeah,
secret.
yeah. There you go. No, like, how has exploratory testing, or even just testing in general, I guess, would be my question, changed in those 22 years of giving talks?
I don't know if testing has changed or if I have changed. It's probably mostly me changing. Sometimes I feel like, testing has always been somewhat of a similar thing. I think maybe the main change that has been happening is that the tooling, programming, automation related stuff, it's more accessible. Like there's better instructions on getting started, nicer libraries, maybe a little bit clearer understanding of different APIs and the idea that you don't have to do all of that to do some of that. Like you can start from one angle. So kind of the doing documentation with automation. I think that's maybe the biggest thing that has become accessible. And of course, developer tester relations. I think that's a big thing that has changed. Like the whole. I think we were teaching, even the ones that started a while ago. We were teaching the adversarial relationships very long, even after they should have already been gone. And that came from the experiences that we had early on, where we kind of we were taught, and we also had organizations that created this distance between different roles, and now it's more like you throw in whatever skills you have, and having different centers of interest doesn't make you any less of a developer in a team. So that's definitely a big change.
What about AI? We're contractually obligated to say that, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. No, what about AI? I mean, has that had a big impact, would you say?
I don't think it has yet had a big impact. So I was doing this interview in one of the Finnish magazines about AI in testing for a while ago, because we were doing a 3-year research project on AI in testing in my previous company, where I did some of the financials for getting a couple of millions to that research that we did spend over the 3 years then. And then I've been using the more modern tools like, the GitHub Copilot. I've been with that since it was basically launched. So kind of like people were asking me, like, is it now changing things? And I was making these maybe jokes, which are half serious, that sometimes it feels like I get better answers from the AI than I get from some of my colleagues. Like it is, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek answer, but sometimes, we are not at our best without a reminder of things we either love or hate. And it seems like people are doing really well with AI if they hate the stuff that it produces, because it gives them energy of doing, bringing the best out of themselves then. So again, I'm worried about people who are too happy with this is doing the work for us. So it's doing the work to elevate you and inspire you. That's kind of the exploratory testing framing that I like to take on it. But maybe,
I'm a fan of the gray area here because I feel like anyone who's saying it's the apocalypse and it's going to replace all of us is about as useful as anyone who's saying that it's awesome. It's going to replace all of us and do all of our jobs for us. Like they're equally unhelpful. And I really want the gray areas and the subtlety to be explored. I found it very helpful to start things and rubber duck debug and have conversations with. I think Nikolay has found the same, but it does not replace what I bring to the table. It's a little bit of it's a cane to walk on, a little bit.
But that's the same thing I do with conference talks. Like, I listen to a talk and I hate it. And sometimes that's the best conference talk that I can ever listen to because it makes me realize how strongly I feel about something. Like
that's a great point.
Single thing, whether, it's right now useful to me or not, it's what it does to me that it's relevant. So AI does a lot of that so that I don't have to interrupt my colleagues and, well, I don't have to find the random people of the internet, even if I like them better than AI in most cases.
Funny, I was at reInvent 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas, and everywhere, every booth, every person, every talk was all about generative AI. Every feature that AWS announced is how is generative AI going to figure into this feature? And I was just thinking to myself, well, 3 years ago, this was blockchain. It was just the same exact thing. And then I heard a story today that 130 years ago in the field of medical research, it was radium. And how can we irradiate the human body to get rid of diseases? It was everywhere, all over the place. And so I'm not sure all of this is going to age super well. I do think AI has staying power. I just let's shave off the extreme ends of it, except as it pertains to creating energy in the conversation.
Yeah, we're not going to take this conversation down the Web3. Marcus loves talking Web3.
Marcus is a huge fan of Web3.
Yeah, he's banned from talking
millions
about it.
on Web3.
So, blockchain for life. No,
Too opinionated. Yeah. There was another question that I think we should get to since we only have like a little bit of time left, and I do want to find out what you're all. Oh, actually, one more question about all the countries. This was actually Nikolay's. Nikolay can ask this question.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, Maaret, since you've been to so many countries, I would love to hear what you think is your favorite.
It's great that you gave me a heads up because I would not have thought of it first. I think actually India is my favorite, and the reason is I judge countries based on people. And I had some of the best people and some of the nicest experiences with the people in that country. Also, I traveled with my daughter, and the conference organizers at Selenium conference there, they did teach my daughter to use a system camera. So she got a new hobby. So she came home with I need a new equipment and I don't have it yet. And she's been doing that ever since. So kind of like, the impact that some people being very friendly can have on you is
that conference is
awesome.
where you and I met. I don't know if you remember, but it's where we met. And I remember I've never seen a talk before by someone who's basically saying, this is going to be a talk about exploratory testing. This is not going to be technical. And then all you do is exploratory test something live and write code the entire time that is easy to understand, easy to read, executes flawlessly at the end of it. And you've done exploratory testing live, and at the end of it, you have an automated test suite. It was badass, if I must say. And I think it was an example that everyone should aspire to, both in speaking and in practice.
Is that on YouTube? It was Selenium conference, right?
Probably. Selenium conference, probably 2018, if I had to guess.
Cool. Yeah, let everyone go search for it if you want to check it out. I'm curious to check it out.
Nikolay, maybe we could get to a couple last questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's one we haven't seen before.
Oh my!
Thank you, Aaron.
One compliment, and it looks like 15 people said it to him.
People really love the glasses.
Nikolay, by the way, has anybody told you this? Those glasses, they look just so great on you.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Yeah, that's the first time someone said that.
They accentuate the best feature you have here.
Wear them all year, I dare you.
What was that, Marcus?
Wear them all year, I dare you.
Yeah.
Only if you're driving trucks in Nevada.
Yeah. We have this question. What are key areas to focus while doing exploratory testing once you're done regression testing and you want to certify the release?
great question. That's going
Yeah.
straight to Maaret.
Yeah.
So many
'Cause
words.
We're all
First of
looking
all,
at
all
the
my
corner.
regression
feel-
testing is exploratory as well.
Right.
I don't think it's worthwhile doing regression testing where I, kind of walk in the exact same steps that I have before, because I'm looking for new things that have emerged because of changes. So probably I want to follow the changes rather than just kind of repeat some kind of a recipe. So then again, what are the key areas to focus? It's kind of application specific. So what's changing in your application? What have you tested since you changed it? Or do you have to collect last 6 months of changes and then try to somehow manage to put all of that together? It really depends so much on what's the overall recipe that it's, at least for me, it's hard one to answer.
Is it ever worth doing like a shot in the dark to just go check something out, a wildcard that wasn't in the change, just to see if something is being affected? That, like, have you ever had that experience where you thought, it's not what's being changed, but I just have a gut feeling I should go check this other area in the app, and found something?
We've
Yeah.
had this conversation even this week with developers, and kind of like, I changed this feature. Why did you think of putting these two features together and noticing the other one is broken? So again, sometimes it's that I model the world differently. Like I think that, if they are from a user perspective in the same area and there's kind of like an overlap that I can imagine that other people maybe don't imagine in the same way, I probably follow that idea of overlapping. And I do find problems that way. But also then we had this follow-up conversation and kind of like, can we change the design so that there's no overlap? And like, well, if that was true, the operating system never caused us any trouble. Like even if we don't fix the operating system, we have done so many fixes to work around the operating systems that we run on. Or, the browser, there's so many different examples of third-party things to our product where we have to do some changes because of it. So kind of like everything is somehow anyway overlapping. So figuring out a way of telling versatile stories of how you put things together. Your theory might be off and it might not be technically exactly correct, but you might learn that it's correct because you had a theory that you then went and experimented on.
Maaret, I'm trying to get a little bit more clarity around this. You talked about following the changes. Let's say we just released, I don't know, let's say a shopping cart feature where you can add an item to a cart. How are you going to think about testing that?
So I would probably do some kind of a tour of where did that end up with the other features? Like what are the things around it? What are the things on the way of kind of like the user's path to get to that feature? Kind of like the things before and after. So I would probably look at kind of things before, after, things that it relies on, things that are resembling it, things that are somehow I can imagine a connection there. So I would probably use the application as my I talk about this idea of like an external imagination. Like it makes me more creative of thinking of those connections, and then prioritizing those, because again, I can't follow all of my hunches. I have to stop at some point, and I would like to be able to follow the hunches that I think are the most likely ones to provide results.
And do you look at code tests or architecture diagrams to guide your testing as well?
So when I follow changes, what I usually mean is I follow pull requests. So I know that I had a version that we put in production, so it was tested, it was approved, and we would get customers' feedback on it if it was not working. So kind of that's my baseline. And from there, we make code changes. So I read the code changes. I look at what's changing in the pull request. Sometimes I read the details of the code. Sometimes I read the title. When the title is written badly, like, people don't, sometimes they write really good titles. Sometimes they write really bad ones. I might go and ask, what does this mean? I might, decide to do something about it, might decide not to do. I categorize them in some way. and that's kind of how I do my change testing. So again, this whole concept of the regression that we would do as a repetitive thing, it happens for me in most cases as part of every single merge request. Like, it gets run with automation, and it doesn't mean that that's all the regression testing, because there's still the change that you need to follow and the things that might be somehow between the things that we have right now in our test suites.
That's beautiful. It sounds really efficient.
It is also really difficult to teach to new people. So I have had a new tester that I'm trying to coach, and teaching someone who is not yet used to the idea of not understanding every detail, but still finding useful information. And doing this fast enough so that you can stay on pace with 10 developers while you are just one specializing in testing. It still takes a bit of practice, let's say that way.
Do we think we should have time for one more question, or are we all set? Do you think how's everybody feeling?
You can't tease it and then not give it.
All right, one more quick question.
Quick hit.
We'll make this a rapid fire question. I don't know if this can be.
Any particular tools we can use for effective exploratory testing?
ChatGPT, ask it and do something else.
I feel like the answer that we're getting from Maaret is our imaginations.
Yeah.
Like if you can imagine that there's overlap with the change, or you can imagine a way that could be affected by the change, and you have time to follow your hunch. I don't know. I feel like there's a very out there answer for that as well.
I feel, yeah, to me, the best tool is user empathy and a pencil and paper. Like you really just need to bring your user focus onto the software, and then make sure you can communicate that effectively to the developer team.
Yeah. And my kind of favorite really as well, by the way, is Selenium and Playwright, especially if you're working on a browser application. Like the thing where you have to look at the user interface on a regular cadence, do something else and leave the automation running in the background. And in the end of the day, look at the logs that you had automated it to create for you. And you've done a full day of exploring without actually paying attention to the computer in the moment. So there's this whole concept of how you can actually build different kind of automation rather than the regression kind of automation that does stuff for you.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Nikolay, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I personally really like flow diagrams and architecture diagrams to think about testing, because it gives me a high level view of what we're trying to do and the inputs and outputs of different systems. And then it allows me to see where there's potential for issues.
There you go. Awesome. Wow, we got through so much in this episode.
One more important question.
Oh my goodness, Nikolay, we know.
Okay. Oh, hold on. How do you I'm gonna zap them through the.
I'm the host. I control the chat.
I know. Who told you to do that?
I don't know, Jason. It was someone that scheduled the meeting yesterday and said, "Hey, can you help me do this?"
I've never sure no. Okay. You know what? Next time I'm gonna wear the glasses so I get the compliments.
Sounds like somebody's jealous.
Yeah.
New Year's glasses with the little date and the numbers.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving us all this time of yours today. And every time you've listened to us over the course of the past year. Time is the most important thing that we have, and you've chosen to spend it with us. And that means the absolute world. That's the gift you are giving to me personally. I know everybody else on the panel feels this way. I just hit the jingle bell. That's the kind of episode it's going to be. You probably can't even hear it on the microphone. Oh, you can? Oh, cool. Nice. Wow, there you go. I should just do that every time I say something like an angel gets its wings. This show's gonna jump the shark the longer you let me talk.
A shout out to our very special guest today. Thank you, Maaret, for joining us.
Maaret, thank you so much. It was awesome to hear you talk about exploratory testing life. I know I for one have learned a lot today listening to you speak. So thank you.
Me too.
Thanks, Maaret. Thanks everyone so much.
Thank you for joining us on Test Case Scenario. Share your thoughts in the comments. We'll make sure to respond to each and every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to keep in touch. If you missed our last episode, it's popping up on your screen right now. Go, click it. Until next time on Test Case Scenario.